Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. You have Alyssa Quorum here, and I'm joined by Ed Carson. And Ed, we have a lot to talk about today. Why don't you go ahead and give us a rundown of the three stocks that we're going to be taking a look at. We're going to be checking back in on Microsoft, and what else?
We're also going to take a look at Wingstop, which has earnings tomorrow, and as well as new IPO Azek, which is now in a buy zone.
All right. Well, first, let's take a look at those major indexes. We really saw some selling come into the market in the back half of the trading day. The NASDAQ finishing down about 1.3%. We had the S&P 500 down 0.7%. The Dow down 0.8%. So, we had this test of the 21-day line. We were able to recover a bit of last week's losses yesterday. And now looking like we were going to have an inside day, but doesn't look like it ended up that way.
Yeah, it looks like it basically took out yesterday's gains, went right back to the 21-day. In the very short term, you can take a look at it. You can say, oh, maybe people realize that negotiations on the stimulus might take a while. There's the big tech hearings, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Google. The CEOs are all going before an antitrust hearing tomorrow. Tons of earnings tonight, tomorrow night, Thursday night. But if you also look at it, we're sort of, we basically in this trading range, and as you were pointing out yesterday, most of those closes have been in sort of this little area within that trend, and we're still there. And if we go sideways for a while, it's not always the most fun if we go up and down a little bit. But it could be constructive, more bases could form, more stocks could hit support, and so that could be bullish. I mean, obviously, and even letting the 50-day line come up and catch up a little bit.
Right. So nothing too alarming as of right now, with a little bit more sessions closer to the 21-day than we've seen in this explosive rally.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's always good, speaking of big tech, to keep a pulse on MSFT, Microsoft, one of the big cap tech stocks. We like checking in on those to get a gauge of what's happening with the overall market. And when it comes to Microsoft, it is holding support near that 10-week line. So that is definitely something good to see.
Yeah, and you probably should switch over to weekly. I know I suggested a daily early just before the show, but it's really, that's where the 10-week line, you can really see that
Right.
holding support. Now, on the downside, this hasn't bounced. Some of the other software names did bounce, but that's okay. If it does bounce from here, that could be a buyable situation. Or if it just forms a new consolidation, it's working a few weeks in, this is why a sideways market would be nice. You could see then some stocks finally have another base after running up quite a while. This was the IBD 50 growth stocks to watch. It's our leaderboard. It's on the IBD leaderboard. It's IBD long-term leaders. It's basically got all the medals.
Yeah.
It's
all the gold stars.
All the gold stars. And unlike a lot of these other big techs, it actually has earnings out of the way.
Yep. Exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself, Ed. That earnings report out of the way, get that risk out for a couple of months. So we'll keep tabs on that and see if it can actually have a little bit of a meaningful bounce here and create that buying opportunity, as you mentioned. Elsewhere, let's check in on Wingstop. And we're going to also be looking at a weekly chart for this one, also hovering near its 10-week line just ahead of its quarterly earnings report, where we did see in the last quarter a pretty significant turnaround on the bottom line growth there.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of a coronavirus play. The takeout pickup model is basically what it was doing beforehand. So shutting down in-down dining is not really what anybody did at Wingstop. So, it's come back to the sort of the top of its prior consolidation, really the 10-week line. If it rebounded from there on earnings or gapped up, that would be viable. There's a couple other things. One reason to look at a 10-week, there's actually a 3 weeks tight on there technically. So there's all sorts of little areas. If it gets over this recent highs that it's, the last few weeks, those would be viable in there. So, I mean, this is one that's been doing well, but, you want to wait. I mean, you could have a good report. We saw some strong stocks or stocks that look strong, like audio codes, seemingly strong report, but really selling off. I'm not saying that would happen, but you don't know if they're going to have good numbers or good guidance, or if the whisper number is higher. So this is one reason why generally it's a good idea to wait, because you don't know what's going to happen after this earnings report.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you got in here,
Yeah.
I don't know if
Even then, it's not too much.
yeah, you don't have that much cushion. So you definitely want to be sure that you have that battle plan during earnings season, and be prepared if a stock that you own happens to move against you. But also, on the other hand, be prepared with those setups. And if you do see that post earning catalyst, make sure you have those on your radar so you can be ready to act in that regard as well.
That's a great point. You really need to have a game plan ahead of time. You can't just say, "Hey, what's the market doing? Oh, I guess I'll buy that. I've never really heard of it. What's it going on?" You need a game plan. Otherwise, you're going to either miss out when stocks fall on you, need to get out, or miss out when they gap up. So you're absolutely right.
Mhm. Yes, and we talk about all of these things in depth on IBD Live, of course, as well as this show. But last but not least, let's check in on recent IPO. Azek, AZEK here, popping up on our radar today with a bit of wild action. It broke out of an IPO base in yesterday's session, tried to tack on another gain today, but it did close the day fractionally lower, still within this buy zone here. But when it comes to these IPO base breakouts, volatility around that buy point oftentimes comes with the territory.
Yeah, with an IPO, you don't want to necessarily put all your chips in because you just don't know how it's going to fly up and down. They can be big winners, but they can really reverse very quickly. The stock still closed in a buy range. It didn't have that. I mean, on a closing level, it wasn't that bad, but
Mm-hmm.
it was disappointing to see it surge so much and come back down. It's an interesting space. Housing, it's doing
Yeah,
like building
interesting story
products,
here.
fake wood products, and other things for commercial and residential uses, like patios for restaurants and have you. It's
Mm-hmm.
somewhat similar to Trex, which has also been doing fairly well. It's had good earnings. I know it has earnings in a couple of weeks, so that's something to pay attention to. But so there's a lot of nice things about it, having the earnings already there. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
decide
and
your
this was our
position.
stock of the day, right? So
It
we
was a
have
stock of the day.
more details on the
Yeah,
story behind the stock.
yeah, and it's a red letter. Like there's a blue dot. Like on a weekly, for some reason, I don't know why it didn't show up on the daily, but on a weekly, it's got the blue dot, and that says it's like the relative strength line hit a new high when it was sort of in a base breaking out. So that's again another just a sign of strength. A lot of stocks that are coming out of bases are going to be sloping down with a relative strength line, but so this was positive.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I really like the story here with it's that staycation group. If people are spending a lot more time outside, whether it's their pools, making sure their pools are in tip top shape, maybe I want a nicer deck if I'm gonna be spending a lot more time at home and enjoying my backyard. So we'll see where this IPO goes, but definitely good to have these new issues on your radar, because although they can be wild and turn against you, they also have a lot of potential, and we like that. All right, everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. And you can be sure that the conversation will continue on IBD Live. And I also want to mention to you that we do have an extension of our leaderboard free access. So make sure you check out the details, the leaderboard free access deal that you can get. So make sure to head to investors.com for all the details on that. All right, everyone, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.